John Fisher. He is going to be performing A Tourist in London. A little bit about John Fisher, I'm just going to read it right here. He recently completed an 8-month run of his solo show, A History of World War II, at the Marsh in San Francisco and Berkeley, after playing 2 runs of the show in Manhattan and another in Los Angeles. He is a 2-time winner of the Will Glickman Playwright Award, as well as being a recipient of the GLAAD Media Award and an NEA Project Grant. Let's see, his plays include the award-winning Action Hero, Shakespeare Goes to War, To Sleep and Dream, Combat, and Medea the Musical. His previous COVID-19 performances include Murder in Hawaii, Shark, and A Tourist in Hawaii, which actually premiered in Solo Performer Spotlight on May 30th, 2020, and you can check that performance out on YouTube. So I think, John, you are unmuted. Can we hear you? Yes, go for it.
Hello, my name is John Fisher, and this is A Tourist in London. I finally graduated from college. I was so proud of myself. I'd done it. I finished college. I've been in school my whole life, my entire life, and I was done. I had 2 diplomas, history and drama. I was so thrilled. I was going to my college graduation in this huge concrete auditorium. It was mammoth. It was great. I had my costume. I love costumes. I had my black gown and my funny square hat and my tassel. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's recreate my college graduation. Oh, this is great. You can help me out. Okay, so I want you to do the music. It's very simple. You all know it. It's pomp and circumstance. Yeah, pomp and circumstance. You know that. Okay, so let's rehearse. Okay, here we go. As a group, I can hear you. Bum, 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 bum. That's good. That's good. You guys are doing great. You're great. Yay. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. It's wonderful. What a group. What a great Saturday night group. Good work, good community. Okay, so here we go. You're gonna do the music when I cue you, and I'm gonna walk down the aisle and get my diploma in my outfit. Here we go. Okay, y'all set? All right, hands. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. You see, I switched my tassel. That means I'm a graduate. You guys were great. What a great group. Good work. You got me graduated. It really took me back all the way to graduation. It was wonderful. I was so proud of myself. Done with school. I had 2 great degrees, history and dramatic art. And that summer, I went off to work in a summer camp. It was so exciting. My first job out of college. And then I was going to England, to London, England. Perfect for me. History, drama, drama, history. Perfect, perfect. So I went to the airport and I got on a plane and I got all buckled in and I read the card. It told me, don't panic if we're about to be killed. If the plane's blowing up, don't panic. That doesn't help. Just die quietly. So I put the card in my seat and I was ready to take off. And this is the best part of any trip, the takeoff. And you can help me with that too. Okay, so you're gonna be the jet engines. You're gonna be the jet engines, okay? So jet engines are like this. Okay, do them at home. Yeah, do them with your shelter-in-place partner. Jet engines. Yeah, here we go. That's good, that's good. Now we're gonna start revving them up and we're gonna do a takeoff. Okay, so we're gonna get louder and louder. Okay, here we go. That was great. What a great crowd. I was headed to England, to London, England. Yeah, I was going my first trip ever to England, and I was following a girl. Yeah, I said that. I was following a girl. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that I know that sounds a little weird. I mean, for me to say I was following a girl, but you know, when she was English, that's why she was in England. But that's not why it sounds weird, right? Yeah. Because if you know me or if you've just met me, you're like, he was following a girl? Why? How? Who? What? Why on earth was he following a girl? Well, I'll tell you, it's weird. Anybody who knows me, they know that I've been happily married to the same man for 33 years, Michael. He's the best. He's the best husband of all time. We love each other. We're soulmates. I'm as gay as they come. I'm just gay, 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 just gay. I'm super gay. I'm uber gay. Yeah, I'm German gay. I am gay. But back then there was no sex. There was no sex in college. There was no sex, none. So I got to summer camp and I met her. I met Tina at summer camp. Yeah, and I figured, I mean, she knew me. I mean, she liked me, but she didn't see me all summer. So I figured she knew about me. I mean, she'd been watching me on stage all summer. I was the drama teacher, of course. And she'd been watching me all summer up on stage. And I was campy as anything when I was on stage. I was just like a big old queen all summer long. And she'd been watching me, so she must have known about me. The way I dressed at camp, I used to dress like a Noel Coward. At a summer camp in the redwood trees, sleeping in tents, I dressed like Noel Coward. I had this long red dressing gown and a cravat and Chinese slippers and this little embroidered hat. I was like Noel Coward of the summer camp, and she'd been watching me, so I figured she must have known. I mean, she was gonna like have a thing for me. She must have seen that I was this big queen. She used to tell me that she talked to her friends about me. She told her friends about me. She said, I've got my eye on him. I like him. There's something about him. Yeah, he's gay. So Tina and I one night ended up kissing. I don't quite know how or why, but it happened. I think I must have been emerging from the desert of my virginity. I've been crawling across this desert of my virginity. You see, my whole life there had been no sex, none, no sex whatsoever. I mean, there was me time. I had a lot of me time. That's what we used to call it, tons of me time, but that's not sex. In high school, I always heard about sex. There were always people talking about sex, but I could never find it. I was always looking for sex. I was looking everywhere for sex. I was like looking around apartments or your houses. Look for sex. I mean, everywhere. I mean, I was always in high school looking for sex. I could never find sex anywhere. Did anybody find sex? If you did, that's great. I never found it. All through high school, I never found it. And I was so excited though, because I was off to college next. And I was going to be in a drama department. Now, there are two things that every drama department has: actors and gay boys. Now, the most sexually promiscuous people in the world are actors. That is historically correct. That is historically right. Actors are historically the most promiscuous people ever. The only thing more promiscuous than actors are gay boys. And the only thing more promiscuous than gay boys are gay boy actors. And this drama department had it all. But there was no sex. I mean, I kept hearing about it. I kept hearing about all these people were sluts. But I went looking for it. I never found it. It was nowhere. I mean, I've been down the school hallways looking for sex. I never found sex. I mean, I kept hearing about it, but I never smelled it. I never tasted it. It never rubbed my skin. I never felt it. It was like a myth, a complete myth. Sex, my whole life. My whole life growing up, I was never more than 20 miles from the Castro, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to utilize the Castro district. I mean, it might as well have been the moon for all the use it was to me. I mean, I could get to it. Oh, I did go to it one time. Yeah. I went to a double feature at the Castro Theatre, 2 musicals in one day. It was so great. It was the best ever. A Gene Kelly musical and a Fred Astaire musical. I loved it. It was great. How gay is that? I'd proven myself. And so when the movie was over, I walked out of the theater and I went home. I got on public transportation and I went home. I left the Castro. I didn't do anything. Useless. A friend of mine, he knew I was going to Castro Theatre. He said, you're going to get eaten alive. I walked out that theater and I was like, here I am. Eat me. Come on, Castro, come and get me. Eat me. Nothing. Was gay sex a myth? Was it just something that gay guys talked about? Was it like not really happening? Were there really no bars or sex clubs or any of that stuff? Was it just a big myth? So I managed to get through all my life without having sex. I never got eaten alive. I even went to the Castro. Nothing happened. So when I ended up with a tongue down my throat at summer camp, I decided, well, it's a tongue, any tongue. Who am I to complain? Yeah, if something is given to you, if something is inserted into your throat, you accept it. You don't ask a lot of questions about what it's attached to. You just accept it. Remember, I was emerging from the desert of my virginity. I was crawling across the desert of my virginity. Crawl with me. Crawl at home. Crawl at home. In your apartment, your house. Crawl across the desert of virginity. Crawl. The sand is dry. It's virgin dry. It's dry. Your skin is cracked. It's cracked like clay with virginity. Your throat is dry. It's dry. There's no sex in your throat. It's a virgin throat. It's dry with virginity. Dry. And then you see, in the distance, a truck going up and down the sand dunes. It's your sex savior. You think, here it comes, and it turns, and it pulls up in front of you, and the driver rolls down the window and leans out and holds out a canteen and says, do you want some water? What are you gonna say? No. Do you have a Coke? I prefer a Coke, or maybe an orange juice or a Perrier. No, you accept what's offered to you. You take the water gratefully. You've emerged from the desert, right? So I had a tongue down my throat. I knew I was headed in the right direction. I was headed towards sex, and that's what I was after. Listen, you accept what's offered. That's how I was raised. Hey, I have good manners. My parents raised me right. I respect my parents. So when a tongue and sex were offered, I took them, and I didn't ask a lot of questions because they were the first, and there weren't a lot of other options. There were none. So I was headed off to England to see Tina, to catch up with Tina. I was so excited. And I was on the plane, and the plane was approaching London Heathrow Airport, and the jet engines were roaring as it was coming in for landing. Okay, so do the landing with me. Do the landing with me. Yeah. A perfectly smooth landing. Do you remember those? Beautifully smooth. And this guy next to me, he looked out his porthole window and he said, there it is, God's country. And I thought, yes, it is. It was beautifully green out my porthole window. And I thought, as I got off the plane, okay, I'm going to be a good straight boy for Tina. I'm going to show her I really am a straight boy. And Tina was there, and she picked me up at the airport in a Mini Cooper. How perfect. I mean, this wasn't like the new Mini Coopers. This was tiny. It was about this big. We barely fit into it. It was great. And she drove me to Canterbury Cathedral. Can you believe that? My first day. And I went inside this massive cathedral. There it was. I've been reading about it my whole life. It was incredible. One of the most famous Gothic cathedrals ever. It was massive. It was spectacular. It was majestic. Those Gothic arches soaring up into the darkness. All that beautiful tracery. It was amazing. And they had Gregorian chants playing for us to get us in the mood. I could smell the Middle Ages. Let's do the Gregorian chants. Yeah, do them at home. Okay, like this. Dominos. Okay, do that with shelter-in-place person or animal or bed or whatever. Dominos. Yeah, do it. Dominos. Yes. You're getting me in the Middle Ages. Dominos. 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 And I turned to Tina and I said, oh my God, this is where that movie took place, where Peter O'Toole stabbed Richard Burton in the back, Beckett. Oh, you know Richard Burton. He was in the original Broadway cast of Camelot. His voice is divine. Well, so much for Tina's straight boyfriend. Yeah. I mean, I tried, but she wasn't interested in musicals. No. It didn't seem to make much difference. We were intimate. We were very intimate. We were fully intimate. We were comprehensively intimate. We were completely intimate. Like I said, good manners. If you are offered something and it's something you actually want, you accept it, okay? You don't ask a lot of questions. You don't get picky. I was a gentleman. Yes, I accepted it. she used to tell me that she talked to her friends about me. I mean, she wasn't being catty. She just said, I talked to my friends about you. And she was being nice. She wasn't trying to suggest anything, but I tried to imagine what these conversations were really like between Tina and her friends. I had these thoughts about them. I would think about these conversations, something like this. Oh my goodness, he is so creative. Tina, he's a drama teacher. Yes. And he's a terrific dresser. He's a wonderful dresser. Tina, he dresses like no coward. And he's got wonderful hands. Tina, he's a queen. He should be wearing a crown. So there I was with Tina. Yeah, we had fun together. We had a great time. We saw all sorts of great sights after Canterbury Cathedral. We went to Plymouth and saw the HMS Victory, Nelson's flagship at Trafalgar, and I discovered the English theater for the first time. It was great. I loved the English theater. It was even better than New York. Well, no, it wasn't better than New York, but it was different. It was cheaper than New York. It was so accessible, unlike New York. And there were always stars on stage. And it was great. And the first show I saw was The Seagull by Anton Chekhov. It was amazing. I got a ticket. I didn't have to wait in a big line. I got it that night. It was a great seat. It was cheap. The theater wasn't even sold out, and the cast was amazing. It was amazing. The star was Vanessa Redgrave, and her co-star was Jonathan Pryce. And playing her daughter in the play was her real daughter, Natasha Richardson. Everybody on stage was a star. It was incredible. And they put all the Americans in one box. We had like a royal box, all of us. We were right there on the stage. And we were like looming over the stage, all of us, looking right down on the actors. And the audience could see all of us watching them like we were the king. I could see Vanessa Redgrave sweat. How exciting is that? And it was great. The people in my box were wonderful. There was this American school teacher, an English teacher, this lovely woman. And there was this really nice young woman who was there in England for the first time like me. And then this guy sat down next to me and he turned to me and he said, oh, I love Jonathan Pryce. I think he is just a dish. I love him. I thought, oh, good, a gay guy. Good, maybe he'll make eyes at me and I can make eyes at him, but he didn't even look at me for the rest of the show. Not once. He didn't even look at me in the corner of his eye. I was like, what is this with gay men? Do they really not have sex? They just watch Vanessa Redgrave? Is that all they do? Is it just a myth? Anyway, the production was incredible. It was amazing. And the best scene had no words. All the actors got the stage except Vanessa Redgrave and Jonathan Pryce, and they got these really hungry, sexual looks on their faces, and they started like panting almost like, and then they started chasing each other all around the dining room. They were like running around the dining room, pinching and giggling, run around your apartment or your house. Just run around and spank each other. Spank the pet. Not, but affectionately. Yeah, and pinch. And they ducked under the dining room table. And then they suddenly reappeared and they started pinching each other. Pinching. You should be pinching at home. Pinch away. Pinch. It was so exciting. I loved it. And then they ran off stage. And they ran back on stage. The spanking was incredible. Watching these two adults spank each other, it was so exciting. And I looked the play up when I was preparing the text for this piece, and I discovered that scene isn't in the play. They just made it up. They added it. They were just having fun. That's what English actors like to do on stage, have fun. It was great. So that was a wonderful introduction. Cheap and available and stars everywhere and everybody having a good time. The next night, I went to see Ronald Harwood's Interpreters, just a perfect subject for me because it was about the Cold War and it starred handsome Edward Fox, that handsome man, really trim in that beautiful gray suit with his spectacular hair and that great English smile. And his co-star was Maggie Smith. Maggie Smith. I couldn't believe it, Maggie Smith. And the thing wasn't sold out. I just walked up to the box office just before the show and I said, could I have a ticket? And they said, yeah, sure. They sold it to me. It was cheap. I had a great seat. It was amazing. And she was terrific. Oh my God, Maggie Smith on stage. She could make any word sound interesting. Any word, the most boring word of all time, Maggie Smith can make sound interesting. Hello. She was incredible. Can you imagine if Maggie Smith was in a play now and you wanted to see it, and you went up to the box office and you said, hey, could I have a ticket for tonight? They'd say, there are no tickets for tonight. You can have a ticket in 4 months. That's the ticket you can have. Oh, okay, well, I'll take the ticket in 4 months. But the show closes in 3 months. But that's the only ticket you're ever going to get, a ticket that exists after the show closes. Fine, I'll take it. I'll sit in an empty theater. It's fine. I mean, it's impossible. It's incredible. I saw these two on stage, and again, they didn't pinch each other, but they were like, you could feel the heat between them. English actors love it. They love it. And the next night, I decided to take Tina to see a musical. And the musical we went to see was Mutiny! Exclamation mark. It was a musical of Mutiny on the Bounty. And this was my introduction to the British musical spectacle. This thing was amazing. There was this huge British warship on stage with all the masts and guns, and it was covered with half-naked British sailors, these big buff guys with these big chests and long hair, and they sang their hearts out. And the ship rocked in the storm, rocked in the storm, rock in the storm. It just rock in the storm. Yes. Yes, Aziz, keep rocking, keep rocking. You're an English sailor. You're topless. You've got long hair, and you're singing mutiny, mutiny, mutiny. It was incredible. And I sat there for 2.5 hours like this. I was amazed. I don't think Tina saw any of it. I think she spent the whole time looking at me. She was like this. Anyway, it was amazing. And it introduced me to the British musical spectacle, which was just kicking in at that time. So the next night, I wanted to go see another musical spectacle. And there was this obscure musical playing in London at the time that everybody wanted tickets to, but it hadn't come to the United States. Nobody in the United States knew anything about it. So I went down to the half-price ticket booth, right? And I bought a half-price ticket to this show. It was available for that night. And, you know, in England, half-price is like so cheap because the tickets are so cheap to begin with. So if you buy a half-price ticket, it's like nothing. It's like they pay you to go see the show, yeah? So I had my half-price ticket and I went to the Royal Shakespeare Company. Woo! And I was sitting there in my seat and I had this great seat and the theater wasn't even full and it didn't even cost that much money. And I had my program, but I didn't look at that. I just put it under my chair. And then the show started, and it was wonderful. It was incredible. All of it. I was amazed. I'd never heard of this thing before. It hadn't been in the United States. I didn't know anything about it. It was Les Miserables with Cole Wilkinson. Yeah, him, the original. Yeah. So I sat there for 3.5 hours watching this thing, and about half an hour into it, Fontaine, the character Fontaine, came on stage with all these curls, and she started singing, and I thought, oh, she's good. Oh, yeah, she's got a good voice. Yeah, she's good. She's good. Yeah. Yeah, she's good voice. Yeah, that's a good voice. Yeah, she's good. She's good. It was Patti LuPone. Patti LuPone, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it was Patti LuPone. I just sat there for 3.5 hours, and the best I could come up with was, oh yeah, she's got a good voice. Yeah, she can sing. Yeah, she's good. She's good. I was a Patti LuPone fanatic in high school and college, all through it, and I didn't even know it was her. I had this cassette tape of Evita. I played it so many times in my father's car that it started to scream. You know how cassettes, when they got old, they get really angry at you if you play them too much and they start screaming? That's what my cassette of Evita did because I played it so many times because I love Patti LuPone. It'd go like this. This was my cassette. Don't cry for me, for I am ordinary of an stand back, brain aside. That was my cassette. I love Patti LuPone, and I had no idea that was her. I had no idea that was her. I watched her for 3.5 hours. It took me a half year to figure out that she was the one I saw. And then it was like, yeah, oh yeah, that was her. It looked like her. Listen, if I'd failed men, gay men, yes, if they had failed me in the sex department, I had definitely failed them in the Patti LuPone department. I was an utter Patti LuPone fan disaster. Here's my advice. I have some advice for theater goers. When you get to the theater and you get your program, read it. Open it up and read it. There's all sorts of interesting information in it, like Patti LuPone's in the show. I mean, I just thought it was this nice woman in the big wig. I didn't realize it was Patti under there. I still tell people that I saw Patti LuPone in Les Miserables. I don't let on that I had no idea it was her. Yeah, that only found out 6 months later. Yeah. Oh, well, I saw her. I can say I saw her. So I felt like it was time to come clean with Tina. I felt bad. I felt like I didn't belong in this relationship, so why were we having it? And I said to her, I said, Tina, I want to be honest with you. I feel bad. I think I might be gay. And she looked at me and she said, I think you're right. Well, that was that. Yeah. I mean, we liked each other a lot, but I was beginning to realize things about myself. And if I was with her, then I must be changing because it didn't feel right to me anymore. And those changes that I went to made me reflect on our current era of change. I look back now, not only on my straight sojourn, but also on how theater has changed, how it has radically changed. 20 years after that, my husband, Michael, and I, we went back to London. Michael's the best. He loves theater. We love the same kinds of theater. Any kind, we love it. We went back to London, but it was totally different from when I'd been there. Completely different. Everything was sold out. Everything was so expensive, and there were no stars. I went to get a ticket to The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Yeah, this was fairly recently. And I went up to the box office and I said, hey, can I have a ticket for tonight? And the guy in the box office says, there are no tickets for tonight. The next ticket available is in April. April? It was November. And that ticket cost £239. £239? What? For a ticket 4 months away? That's insane. And there were no stars in Curious Case. I did get a ticket to Ralph Fiennes in Shakespeare's Richard II. Yeah. It was standing room and it cost £40. I had to stand there for 3.5 hours watching Ralph Fiennes. I stood more than he did as the lead. It was incredible. What had happened? Everything had changed. And Richard II now brings up Shakespeare. And Shakespeare's a very interesting person at this time because Shakespeare had his own lifelong interactions with disease, with plague. He lived through what we're living through right now, repeatedly, and it changed him. Shakespeare was a child of the plague. He was born in 1564 in Stratford, and that year the plague struck Stratford, and 1/6 of the population of Stratford was killed by the plague. Shakespeare survived. He wasn't killed as a baby, and he grew up and he started writing his early masterpieces, incredible plays like Henry VI, parts 1, 2, and 3, Richard III. He was off. He was becoming a great playwright, and then plague struck again in 1593 and 94, and the theaters were closed, and Shakespeare, who was on a roll, was suddenly out of a job. And he had to figure out how to make some money. So he decided to diversify. He'd been a dramatic poet. Now he would just be a poet. He would write epic poetry. That was his solution. He wrote these incredible epic poems, Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, because he couldn't write for the theaters because they were closed. And he wrote these incredible introductions, these love letters really, to the Earl of Southampton, who was his sponsor. His sponsor. And it is now generally agreed the Earl of Southampton was probably his lover, Shakespeare's lover. The sonnets, they think, were also written as love letters to the Earl of Southampton. So in this plague year, in these years of the plague, Shakespeare's sexuality was changing, even as he was changing his career to try and survive the plague, even as he was diversifying his output for the plague. Was he diversifying his sexuality? He was a married man. But he was going through a personal change himself. He was embarking on an adventure with the Earl of Oxford. Amazing. He decided, I'll be a poet. I'll be a poet. And maybe he decided also, I will be a homosexual. Well, the plague passed and the theaters reopened. And Shakespeare went on to write his great tragedies, King Lear, Hamlet, the Scottish play, Othello, masterpieces, incredible. But then the plague struck again in 1608 and 1609. And this time it knocked Shakespeare down. He was not ready for it this time. He was knocked over. And he shifted from writing his great tragedies to eventually writing his romances. But in the interim, there was illness. Was there a breakdown? The plays he wrote during the plague year, 1608, 1609, are very, very strange. Timon of Athens, Pericles, they're strange in structure. The characters are strange. They're strange in manner. Everything about them is odd, unlike Shakespeare at all. And he went from being the great secular philosopher of the tragedies to being the great Christian philosopher of the romances. These are strange plays, though, in this transition between the tragedies and romances. Cymbeline is another one of them. A brilliant play, a wonderful play, but odd. It keeps changing its structure. The plot keeps changing. The characters are very odd. It's wonderful, but hard to get a grasp on. Is it experimental? Was Shakespeare himself sick with the plague during this? Was he having a nervous breakdown? There's an amazing scene in Cymbeline where the character Imogen is asleep in her bed. She thinks she's alone, but Iachimo comes into her bedroom. He's not supposed to be there. He invades her bedroom while she's sleeping, and he looks at her and he says, "The crickets sing, and man's o'erlabored sense repairs itself by rest. Our Tarquin thus did softly press the rushes ere he wakened, the chastity he wounded." Oh, Cytherea. Tarquin? He's talking about Tarquin. Tarquin is the rapist of Lucrece from Shakespeare's epic poem, The Rape of Lucrece. He's talking about rape in this woman's bedroom in the middle of the night. What is Shakespeare saying about the social situations, about these characters? It's madness. It's crazy. This play is insanity. Other things have shut down theaters, not just plays. Many things. Oliver Cromwell, the great Puritan, with his protectorate, shut down the theaters in 1642. He beheaded the king, King Charles I, and then he shut down the theaters. Why? He thought that the theaters represented pointless enjoyment. He thought they were sinful. Many things have shut down theaters. The ancient Greek theater, the creations of Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, the masterpieces, the Oresteia, Oedipus Rex, Medea. It dwindled. It degenerated through lack of interest and finally petered out. The same thing happened to the Roman theater. The wonderful social commentaries of Plautus and the incredible action plays, adventure plays, weird political plays of Seneca suddenly dwindled through lack of interest. Was it lack of interest, though? Or perhaps they were destroyed by St. Augustine, who in the 5th century in his City of God said that the theater itself was a plague. It wasn't impacted by the plague, it was a plague itself. It was a plague in its corruptibility. It could corrupt young people, could corrupt anybody. It was a plague. The same thing was said by Plato 1,000 years before in ancient Greece, at the time of Sophocles, at the time of the great tragedies that were social critiques of the empire, the politics of ancient Greece. Those great plays were criticized by Plato. Plato said that theater idolizes bad behavior. It encourages it. This is the master philosopher of his time, and he says that theater is bad. It's encouraging bad behavior. Maybe Augustine destroyed the Roman theater. Maybe Plato destroyed the Greek theater. And even when theater hasn't been destroyed by people or by disasters as it had been previously, it's been altered by it, almost unrecognizably. World War II was a massive world disaster, a disaster for the United States, and it completely altered the nature of American theater, completely altered it. Before the war, we had the majestic, wonderful, beautifully constructed, very charming plays of Lillian Hellman and Thornton Wilder. But after the war, after the carnage of the war, there's a new harsh realism that comes on stage. The plays of Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller. In Tennessee Williams, there is castration. There is cannibalism. There's rampant sex and abuse, and the structure of some of these plays is insane. It's plague-like. And in Arthur Miller, people are killed for being witches, for just being suspected witches. They are burned, they are drowned, they're crushed by stones. It's a savage new theater. Also, after the war, we get the integrated musical, best realized in the wonderful, gorgeous musicals of Rodgers and Hammerstein. Now, Richard Rodgers had written many musicals before the war, but they were always like frivolous. They're always fun. They're always like gay. I mean, they weren't gay. They weren't gay. You know, they were like gay, like fun. And Hammerstein, too, had written musicals before the war, and his musicals were even socially progressive. He was concerned about things like race in this country, politics, ambition, power. He was very critical of this country, but the songs in Hammerstein musicals had almost nothing to do with the plot. They were just like diversions. But after the war, Hammerstein and Rogers come together and create a profound new music theater, a theater as challenging to the American polity as the plays of the ancient Greeks, critical of America, critical of its culture, its politics, its social mores, tragic, deeply tragic musicals, critical of everything in America. These musicals are amazing, not just because of the music and the stories and the dialogue and the lyrics, which are sumptuous, but also for the emotions, the politics they impart. Oklahoma, Carousel, South Pacific, deeply tragic explorations of American life. And the music is so complicated, it becomes part of the story. It tells monologues, it works as dialogue, it progresses the story in recitative, arias. It becomes operatic in its grandeur and its majesty. There is one playwright who bridged the wartime era, who was changed by it. Just as Shakespeare had been changed by the plague, Eugene O'Neill was altered by the Second World War. Before the war, he wrote sentimental tragedies and experimental plays, but after the war, there was a new brutal realism. His post-war masterpieces, Iceman Cometh, Long Day's Journey into Night, and A Moon for the Misbegotten are almost cruel in their dissections of human weakness. They are brutal plays to their characters, brutal plays, and long. Plays become very, very long, and audiences love it. They love this length. They love the violence, the drunkenness, and the sex. They've survived the war. They want it all. They want to see it on stage. They want to see it. They love it. The post-war masterpiece of the American theater, Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, is an orgy of masochism, booze, and bad behavior, and the audience eats it up. And the plays get more and more extreme and insane and plague-like almost in their expression. And where will this all take us? Where are we headed? Things are getting so extreme and so expensive. It is so expensive to see a show now. There's no standing room anymore. You can't stand on Broadway. They won't let you stand. There's no standing room. And there's no sneaking into act twos. I used to sneak into act twos, I like act twoing, it's called. I go into act twos. I mean, I'd see the whole play once, pay for it, and then I go back and see the second act a bunch of times. They don't do that anymore. There's so much security. They're so concerned about the loss of revenue. And ticket prices now are cruel. They're almost cruel. It's almost torture paying the high prices of tickets for theaters. And do people really want to sit around anymore in a packed theater? Do they really want to sit there with their expensive ticket watching a hit show crammed together, surrounded by disease? Do they really want to do that? Would you want to do that this week, next week, in a month? Would you really want to sit there in a packed theater and watch a 7-hour play? Some American plays now are 7 hours. I mean, great. As a culture, we can have a 7-hour play and enjoy it. But do people really want to do this? Packed in with disease? And maybe this is a self-correction. Maybe this is correcting all these things. And how will theater come back? If it does come back, how will it come back? When the Restoration Theater came back after the Protectorate, after the death of Oliver Cromwell, it was completely different from the theaters he shut down in 1642. There was no more Shakespeare. There were no more boy actresses on the stage playing the women's roles. Now there were women on the stage, great! But only 2 theaters were licensed by King Charles II to reopen. People weren't that interested when it came back. It came back completely differently. So how will our theater come back? Will it come back cheaper? Will there be no scenery? Will the scenery be painted with the words of the actors, just like in Shakespeare's time? Maybe it will come back as something bizarre, something weird, animals performing, doing tricks, juggling. Maybe the boys in dresses will come back. Maybe the actors will sit on the stage and watch the audience. Maybe there'll be social distancing in the audience and on the stage, so there can't be any intimacy, no violence, no sexuality, no intimate romance. No potent love stories happening right there in front of us. And where are we right now? Where are we right now as we watch things on TV? Where are we? We are in the nightmare of the great French literary theorist Jean Baudrillard, who wrote in his Brilliant essay, The Ecstasy of Communication. We are trapped in our capsules, staring at our screens, remote, isolated from any real experience. This was his nightmare, Jean Baudrillard's nightmare. I mean, theater itself isn't even real. It's a simulation of reality, but we don't even want the simulation. We want to watch it remotely. Why? Because Baudrillard said, we're afraid. We are afraid. That way, if we watch it on the screen in our little capsule, our separated places, if we watch it on the screen and we become frightened, we become insecure, we become afraid. If we are displeased, we can turn it off with a click of a button. This was Baudrillard's nightmare that we're living. St. Augustine had said that the theater was the plague itself. It was impacted by the plague. It was the plague itself. But is that bad? Is that really a bad thing? The great French theater theorist and director Antonin Artaud said the theater should be a plague. It should be a plague. That's good. In his brilliant essay, The Theater and the Plague, he says that theater is like the plague because it causes our masks to fall, exposes our darkest impulses, and if they are indeed dark, that is humanity's fault, not the theater's. He wanted to hold a mirror up to nature, a mirror. And if people don't like what is seen in the mirror, if they don't like that, if they don't like the society they see, it's not the mirror's fault, it's society's fault, it's the reflection's fault. It's Aristotle's mirror up to nature, Shakespeare's mirror up to nature, but what it shows us is the crime, not the mirror. And that is Shakespeare's theater, that is his theater. Shakespeare was a man of the plague, writing through the plague, trying to reach out to us, telling us about society. Yes, Shakespeare agrees with Artaud. Shakespeare had a deep, profound, dynamic belief in unspeakable acts on stage, plague-like acts. The Scottish king's murderous lust for power, Iago's murderous lust for revenge, Othello's murderous jealousy, Lear's rage, his insanity, his screaming up a storm. These characters remain above the law, beyond control. They're like plague themselves, these characters. And what is Shakespeare trying to say to us? If we really look at what he writes, what is he trying to say to us? At the end of Othello, everybody is dead. Everybody on stage is dead except the villain, except Iago. And they take him off to jail, but do we really believe for a second that he's going to get to jail? Don't we think he's going to escape, break out of prison, and wreak revenge on everybody he didn't get to in the first play? There'll be 7 more Iago plays with him killing everybody. Isn't that what Shakespeare's showing us? Do we see what Shakespeare's trying to say? This guy is society. This is what succeeds now. In his masterpiece, Hamlet, Prince of Denmark, Hamlet is guided in his acts by a ghost, a specter, a guide to insanity. And based on what this ghost, this specter tells him, he kills everyone and unseats the government of the country he lives in. This is madness. This is passion unleashed, passion gone berserk. And what if Hamlet is wrong? What if he's wrong? What if this ghost that talks to him is just his own insanity? What if he's crazy? He's destroyed his country. He's got everybody killed. He's got his mother poisoned. He's killed his mother, the ultimate transgression. Isn't this perhaps what Shakespeare's showing us? Passion unhinged, plague in his characters. Artaud wanted theater to be like the plague, where psychic communication spreads out from the theater event and changes society for the good. Jerzy Grotowski, the great Polish theater theoretician and director, agreed with Artaud. Grotowski and Artaud said the actor should be the martyr burning at the stake, still signaling through the flames, signaling to us, signaling, give me some flames, give me some flames. You can rustle paper together. Give me some flames, give me some flames. The actor is the martyr on the stake, screaming to us through the flames. Change, you must change, you must change. Isn't that Joan of Arc? The martyr signaling to us through the flames, change, there must be change, there must be change. Spreading out from the theater, where the plague begins, spreading out to enact change. People should emerge from the theatrical experience. This is Artaud and Grotowski. They should emerge from the theatrical experience either dead or changed. Purge. It's Aristotle's catharsis. Purge, but not a passive purgation, an active one that will excite change in the audience. Theater should be like a raid on a brothel. This is our tone. Theater should be like a raid on a brothel, insane, confused, scary. And this is the tie-in with gay theater, because gay theater came from an era of protest, and it engendered AIDS theater, the theater of disease, the gay plague, gay men strapped to the pole, burning, screaming through the plague, screaming through the flames, their disease. Help us. Help us, we are dying, help us. And that makes sense, because gay theater came from protest. It was engendered by two theatrical events that weren't even in theaters: the Compton cafeteria riots right here in San Francisco and the Stonewall riots in New York City, where drag queens, fabulous drag queens, turned on the police and said, no, you cannot arrest us any longer. We're fabulous, we look great, we look spectacular, and you won't leave us alone. It was a protest, a moment of rage, of plague in the streets. In both of these incidents, Compton cafeteria and Stonewall, they're both like the raid on the brothel that Artaud demanded from theater. So what is all this plague, this disease? Is it a self-correction? Is it like my sexuality had to be corrected by first being wrong and then it could be right? And maybe people won't want theater when this is over. Maybe they won't want it. I don't mean it, not the it, but the terrifying experience of actually sitting there in a packed theater surrounded by disease, watching, wondering, fear, unhinged. Maybe they just won't want it anymore. I think not. I hope not. But China reopened its movie theaters. They say, come on back to the movies, come back, enjoy the community of movie watching again, and very few people showed up. In recent polls in the United States, people have said they might feel safe going back to a live performance, a theater performance at the beginning of next year. But suppose we get to the beginning of next year and they say, no, we're not ready yet. We need another year. Suppose this goes on indefinitely. And is plague really the answer? Is that the only thing on stage, in the audience, in the street, that's going to remind us that we are alive? Is it? I think not. It can't be. But how will we change? We will. We will change. Or we'll just stop. And is it even our choice? Ask Artaud. Ask Shakespeare. Thank you. I'm John Fisher, and this has been A Tourist in London. Thank you very much.
Awesome, John. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're back.
Yeah. Perfect. You are back. Thank you so much, John.
My pleasure. Hey.
I'm always so impressed with your performances. When I started working for the Marsh about a year ago, actually, A History of World War II was actually the first performance that I saw.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
The Marsh, and I saw it at the Marsh Berkeley, and it was actually the first solo performance that I've ever seen.
Oh, my God.
I
didn't know. I would have been terrified.
Yeah, I come from a dance background, so I'm used to watching large groups of dancers on stage and stuff, but seeing somebody who can take the stage and perform for, an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, it's just, so amazing. And then History of World War II is so physical, like all of your pieces are that I've seen thus far, just to be able to do that. So kudos and congratulations.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks.
And you pose a super interesting question, with that performance, especially, what will theater be like, when everything does reopen, and what will performances be like, not only for the Marsh, but for Theater Rhino and for, the opera and the ballet, not just in San Francisco, but everywhere in the US, what will it sort of be like? Do you have you enjoyed doing Zoom let me rephrase that. Have you started to enjoy doing Zoom performances?
I've loved doing the Zoom performances. I've done 15, I've done one a week. That's been my goal. I research them, I rehearse them, I present them every Thursday, and then I've done 2 repeats at the Marsh, and I love it. I was going into it with a show that suddenly closed at the Marsh, and I was thinking that first week, I'm just going to be like sitting around here being frustrated on Thursday when we usually perform. So I whipped up a show.
Yeah.
And, but the horrifying thing is you can't really do the great, well, like ballet. It's all about the lifts.
Yeah.
It's all about the contact. It's all about those amazing bodies coming together. And I'm like, where's that going to be? And they're talking about Zoom. Well, Zoom can get more sophisticated, but you're never going to have the 2 bodies together on Zoom.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about that. We had a conversation about, you are sort of like me in the sense that, the show must go on. And, I think you enjoy live performance just as much as I do. And you're exactly correct. When you're thinking about dance or you're thinking about solo performance, you're really thinking about being there present in the moment. Yeah. And Zoom does offer us the ability to somewhat feel that emotion and be connected with that performer for the short amount of time, but there's nothing like a live performance. So
no, the bodies, and I used to be kind of like, oh, come on, what's the difference between theater and cinema? And it's like finding myself performing live for a little green light. I'm really aware now of what the audience is. There aren't breathing bodies out there. They don't laugh, they don't clap, you can't hear anything. Even when they get up and go to the bathroom, it's like a big moment. Everybody's like, oh my God, somebody's going to the bathroom. It's like this big turmoil, Somebody goes to the bathroom at a movie, it's like nobody cares, Right? It's so loud. It doesn't make, if people go to the bathroom at the ballet or the opera, everybody stares at them. Person. And that's part of the theatrical experience.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think being in an atmosphere with other people that are there to enjoy the show. You're exactly correct. That's part of the experience of doing it. And so you mentioned you do something every Thursday for Theater Rhino.
Yeah,
is that right. On your guys' Facebook page?
Yeah, we do it on Zoom now. Facebook was getting kind of limited in terms of the sound quality wasn't great.
Yeah.
So my first piece was like me with my computer, no mic, no DSL cable. It was just like barely watchable.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly we got a little more sophisticated. But I just sort of thought going into this, we and this is why the Marsh impresses me. You guys, we've been doing 2 or 3 things a week. You guys are like going all the time. And
every night of the week, yeah.
I know, and I think that's what it's got to be about. And like we were talking about before, that things got extended. Things are going on, and it's like we have to keep stuff out there. We have to.
Yeah, I know. I was looking forward to. I think it was June 29th when I was going to be able to get my hair cut, but it doesn't look like that. Yeah. Doesn't. That's why I'm wearing a hat right now. So at some point, I will be able to get a haircut. But as far as other things that you've got going on, I know that you have a post-Pride virtual community mixer that's coming up on Monday that I'm actually registered for. So I will be there. But tell us a little bit about that. How's that going to go?
Well, that's like Peaches Christ is our hostess, comedian extraordinaire. She's fabulous. I think Peaches Christ, if she'd been around in the 60s, would have been one of those Compton cafeteria Stonewall people. She's just like, she's hysterical and beautiful and defiant. And she's the hostess. And there's also going to be like breakout rooms, but it's not dating. It's not speed dating. Don't get nervous. We're not hooking people up. But it's a way for us, our audience, to come together, to do something as a group, enjoy Peaches, enjoy some other activities, and then break off and meet people. And it's like, you're not dating. It's just like, I realized that suddenly that everybody I meet, it's sort of like set up. It's like a meeting, or it's scheduled, or, I'm working on a play. And what I think is so exciting about this is I can't think of the last time where I was like actually in a room, a virtual room, but just actually in a room suddenly with somebody I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to figure out how to be charming and listen, and I'm going to learn something new. So, it's kind of everything. And we kind of put it on Monday because I think that's kind of going to be a good wind down activity.
Oh yeah,
And
perfect. And
then,
I'm going to go ahead and throw your website link into the chat right now for everybody. So if you just click on
oh, that's great.
rhino.org, you can get registered. It's through Zoom. You just type in your first name, last name, and your email address, and you'll get that Zoom invite link. So you can go there. And also, I believe that, let's see, Tuesday, June 30th is Give Out Day. Give Out Day is the only day of giving focused on the LGBTQ organizations and causes. So let's make Theater Rhino our cause, and let's go ahead and jump onto their website and go. We have our tip jar. The Marsh has its tip jar.
Oh, yes.
That link.
Yes, and I encourage people to give the tip jar. Yeah, give the Marsh tip jar.
Yeah, and every 50% of the proceeds that we get in the tip jar tonight, the Marsh will go ahead and donate that right back to Theater Rhinoceros. So we're all in this together. We're all a family. Every theater has to stick together, because I truly believe theaters will come back stronger than when they left. I really think that people are hungry for live performance. I send out the emails for the Marsh. So if you guys get an email every day from the Marsh newsletter, that's coming from me. So I apologize if I'm flooding your inbox. But no, like
it's good. You're reminding people.
Yeah, and we do something every day of the week at 7:30. So a lot of times it's a way for me to sort of keep track of myself. Yeah, so jump on there. There's lots of opportunities for things to do. I know some people are getting a little zoomed out at this point. I think there's, everybody wants that live performance to come back. So, but with that, John, it looks like we are at the end of our Saturday evening. Thank you again so much for coming to the Marsh stream. It's always a pleasure to have you. You can check out tonight's performance and John's last performance, A Tourist in Hawaii, on our YouTube page, Marsh stream. They're both there. Visit Theater Rhinoceros's Facebook page. Check out their website. Anything that we can do to support each other, the Martians are here to do for you, John.
Support the Marsh, support the Marsh, support Theater Rhino. Thank you, Brian. Thank you,
guys. All right, Martians, I bid you farewell. Tune in next week. Monday, we've got Monday Night Marsh. Tuesday is Tell It on Tuesday. Wednesday, Solo Arts Here with Judith C. Thursday, Stephanie's Marsh stream with Fred Johnson. And then Friday night is bingo. 4th of July, lots of stuff going on for us for the weekend. So I'm sure Stephanie's going to keep us busy. Take care, check your emails, and we hope to see you all back here on Monday. Have a great night. Thank you, John.
Bye, Brian. Thank you. Thank you, Martians.
Bye, guys.